Chullin Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin. When the Torah discusses the Isser to shear the wool of a Bechar and to do work with a Bechar, so the Torah doesn't differentiate between a sheep and a cow. Although a cow, a shar, doesn't have good wool, the Torah still says it's also to shear its wool. What can you do with it? You can't make any clothing with it, you'll make a sack with it. There's no differentiation. Yet we know that by Reish Zagez, the chiyuv is only with a sheep. What is the source? And one more point. Rabbi Yossi takes what the Torah says literally. When the Torah says lakit kitzircha, the Rabbi Yossi says it means literally a sickle. Only something that you cut with a sickle, you have a chiyuv and peah. But if you do it with your hand, not. Yet Rabbi Yossi agrees that if it's something that's the derech to do with your hand, such as if you have onions or other things that you take out with your hand, then you still have a chiyuv peah. So therefore, and Chachamim would argue on Rabbi Yossi and say, let's say somebody's washing his sheep and wool comes off during the wash, so Chacham would hold that it doesn't matter if it's a derech or not a derech, you still have a chiyuv of Reish Zagez, and according to Rabbi Yossi, you'd be potter because that's not the way to remove the hair. You have to shear it with some sort of tool. But when it comes to plucking hairs out of a goat, let's say, since that's the derech, that's how you do it, so Rabbi Yossi would say, you'd be chayiv. So that can't be the reason why a goat is potter from Reish Zagez. What is the reason? So the Gemara says, because it says in the pasuk, la'amid l'shares, something that you are roi to do sheirus with, something that roi meaning that you can make clothing for a kohen, bigdei kahuna, to put chelas, it has to be from the wool of a sheep. Now what do you do with the gzer shava giza from Eiv? Says the Gemara, that's to teach us that wool that's hard, you are potter from Reish Zagez. How many sheep does one need in order to be chayiv in Reish Zagez? So the Mishnah says, Beishamai say 2, Beisil say 5. Where did Beisil get their source? Beishamai bring a pasuk, so 2 is enough. So once 2 is enough, why do you have to jump to 5? Says the Gemara, because it says in the pasuk in Shmuel, which is in the Navi, V'chomish tzoin asuyos. Says the Gemara darshans, Shema asis baleim v'oimrim sloi kum asei mitzvah chadasha. 5, that's saying in that pasuk, 5 sheep, they cause a person, they tell the person, come, get up, let's do a new mitzvah, let's do Reish Zagez. So you see, you need 5. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi says that his father, who's the God Ador, Rabbi Yossi, held that it's not 5 and it's not 2, it's 4. And where did he get it from? A pasuk in the Torah, Va'arbat soin tachas aseh. The Torah considers a seh, singular, 4. You can get to 1 sheep by 4. So you need 4 in order to do Reish Zagez. Says Rebbe, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. And even if his source was Kabbalah, meaning in the Navi, and Beishamai Beisil's source was in the Torah, I would still say the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. But it happens to be that Rabbi Yossi's source is in the Torah, and like we said before, Beisil's source is in the Navi from Shmuel. Why is the halacha like Rabbi Yossi? Says the Gemara, it can't be because he compromised between Beishamai and Beisil. Beishamai say 2 and Beisil say 5. So it comes Rabbi Yossi say, you know what, I'll do somewhere in between, I'll do 4. That can't be. The only time somebody else could come and make a compromise later on is if the original Mechulakim, the people that were arguing, they left an opening for that, and they said, Ben kach u ben kach, either this way and this way, I still hold that the halacha is like me. So the next person will come along and say, well, I'll take the kach, I'll go like this, like that one, and the other thing like somebody else. But over here, they didn't leave any opening. Beishamai say 2, Beisil say 5. Nobody mentioned 4. 4 is a brand new Torah. Somebody in the later generation can't come up and say, I'll compromise. The only reason why the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi is because he heard him in Shmuel, he heard it from Chagag, Melacha, and Zechariah, and that's why the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. How much wool does one need to shear in order to be chayiv in Reish Zagez? So in the Mishnah, we have 2 shittas. We have Rabbi Yossi ben Hirkanos, who says that each and every sheep has to produce 1.5 mana, and according to Chachamim, they say kol shu, a little bit. So we have 3 shittas here. Rav says when they mean kol shu, they meant 1.5 mana total. But he comes up with a new chiddush, mechumashos. Mechumashos means that you have to divide it perfectly equal between the 5. You can't have that one gives off 1 mana and the other 4 give off a half a mana. Each and every one has to give off 0.3 of a mana, so you get a total of 1.5 mana. Shmuel says you need a total of 60 slime, so that you give 1/60th, you give 1 sela. And Rebbe Lazar says mashu means even 1 sela worth, and you give a sela. How much do you give to the kohen? So Rav and Shmuel say you always give 1/60th. And that the Mishnah says you give 5 mana, it means if somebody has a lot of shearings, he has a lot of wool to give to Kohanim, he shouldn't divide it up between many kohanim. He should give it to less kohanim and give them a nicer portion, which would be 5 slime per kohen. Even though you could get away with 1/60th, it's better to give each kohen a respectful amount, which is 5 manas. You can make a small beged. And according to Rabbi Bachana, the shear is always 5 slime. What is the shear of truma? Shear of truma, if it's a deraisa truma, meaning chita, tirish, v'yitzar, wheat, olive oil, and wine, so the shear is even one kernel of wheat is patters the whole kri. In other words, you don't need anything. It's a mashu. But Rabbanan came and instituted 3 shiurim. If you have a generous side, you give 1/40th. If you're stingy, you give 1/60th. And if you're in between, you give 1/50th. But if it's a Rabbanan truma, such as all the fruits on the tree or vegetables, then the halacha is midrabbanan. Chum instituted 1/60th. We say every day, Elu dvarim she'elem shiur, hapeya v'abikurim. So it says peya has no shir midiraisa. Yet Chacham instituted a shir which is 1/60th. Says the Gemara, a beautiful story. Rabbi Yochanan overheard Isi Barhini teaching his son our Mishnah, and he overheard him saying the word Rechelim. Says Rabbi Yochanan, don't use the word Rechelim. I know in the Torah it says Rechelim by Yaakov Avinu, but our Mishnah says Rechel Lois, and there's a difference, big difference between Lashon Torah L'chud and Lashon Chacham L'chud. Don't use it. And then he says, who is the Rosh Hashiva in Bavel? You just came from Bavel. Tell me who the Rosh Hashiva is. Says Isi Barhini. He says it's Abba Arika. He was referring to Rav the Galadar. Rav was the tallest man in his generation, like the Gemara Nida says. So he called him the tall Abba. Rabbi Yochanan took offense. He says, "How dare you? I used to sit with Rav in front of Rebbe. Rebbe was our Rebbe, and I sat 17 rows behind Rav. And Rav would argue with Rebbe in learning, and there were sparks coming out of their mouths, and I didn't understand a single word they were saying. And you're going to call him Abba Rika?" Says Isi Barhini, since we're already talking about our Mishnah, tell me, what's the shear of Gez? How much do you need? So he said, you need 60 slime, so you get one. If you give one cell, that's 1/60th. He says, well, what about in our Mishnah? It says Mashu. So he says, and if I didn't know the pshat, then what would be the difference between me and you? See, I know pshat and you don't know pshat. And the pshat, he says, all they said Mashu is to say that the halacha, like not like Reb Daisa who says a much larger shear, we say a kol shu. Have a wonderful day.